All right. Hello and welcome to the first Women in Entrepreneurship that we have done in years, millennia. It's been a while. Nina was traveling. What else was going on? Some other stuff. I took a week off on vacation. So we're happy to reconvene and be back together. If you guys don't know, this is Nina Brennan, one half of Creative Brand Framework. I'm Barb McGowan, and apologies if I sound a little bit froggy. If you guys watched my live last night, you know that I'm a little bit sick. But we are here to talk about energy today, and Nina's gonna intro that topic for us.
Absolutely. So energy is basically everything. So you can talk about the way you talk to people, where you are, what you cultivate inside of your body. But as beings, where do we start with this one? Do we start big and go small, or do we start small and go large? So realistically speaking, at the end of the day, we're just humans that are just beings, right? But we're just made of energy, and we can either cultivate negative energy or cultivate positive energy. And that's going to transpire in every single aspect inside of our lives. And I know that, Barb, you're not feeling too well. You journaled about this yesterday. So if you want to hop into like what you were talking about of like bringing your energy, even when it feels low, how you can cultivate positive energy, even through like a lagging period. We'll start there.
Oh gosh, it's just so apropos of everything going on in my life. I was telling Nina before we got on this call that it's like, so I've been feeling, pretty sick the last few days. And actually this process of being able to reconnect with you makes me feel like is bringing my energy up, which I love. But because I've just been kind of laying around in bed feeling like garbage, and it's funny because it's like making me reflect back to when like the pandemic first started. And, if you aren't aware, I was a teacher. And so I remember like that Friday where schools were, getting canceled and stuff. And there were like no kids in the class. And then, schools were closed for like a super long time. That first week that I wasn't working before I like was able to work remotely, it was very much this cycle of stagnation and doing nothing. And what I was telling Nina right before we jumped on was, it's like, if you're not actively on a growth upward, trajectory, then you're on a downward trajectory. And that's kind of what I was experiencing when the pandemic first started and I didn't have anything to do. And I was just kind of like there. And I feel like that's also kind of where I've been energetically the last several days that I've been sick. And I've just noticed, kind of stepping back and observing my habits and behaviors and my emotions, that it's so easy when you're in that situation, or I'll speak for myself. It's so easy for me when I'm in that situation to fall into like almost like a depression, like I feel like I'm never going to feel better. I'm never going to be able to, have energy and be able to, get up out of bed and do stuff again, even though I know intellectually that that's not true. But it's like yesterday I got up and I did some work and, posted the live in the Facebook group and that kind of a thing. But what I was journaling about last night, what I was telling Nina before we got on this call was, it's like our actions precede our habits, which precede our momentum and our motivation, meaning that the small little actions that we take are cumulative. And when we do those repetitively, those become our habits. And then our habits turn into motivation, turn into momentum. It's not the other way around. Like I'm not going to magically become motivated, jump out of bed and feel high energy when I'm not feeling well and like get out of bed and just like feel super motivated to like get stuff done. It's like the opposite. We don't feel motivated. We don't want to get out of bed and do something that like forces us to like interrupt the inertia, like a body at rest is going to stay at rest. But it's by virtue of raising our energy that we're kind of like, fake it till you become it, like fake it till you make it is not quite right. Fake it till you become it. Like I'm acting as if I am doing the behaviors of someone who's motivated, and who has energy. And that's what creates the motivation and the momentum and the energy. I don't know if that fully made sense. It made sense in my feverish, sleep-addled brain, but hopefully it made sense to anyone else watching.
Well, I was picking up what you were putting down there, Barb, and I think that's really important, because the energy that you give off is the energy that you attract, and like attracts like, or the vibrations. Like, I know negative energy is a lot more absorbed. So if you are walking around with a storm cloud, it's a lot easier to like rub off on somebody in a negative way than it is from a positive perspective to try and like influence a positive person. But your energy actually can touch up to 3 degrees of people that you interact with. That's like what the scientific study is. So like, I know that you were talking about like energy and stagnation in the morning and like how to cultivate it and stuff like that, but like energy is just motion. And like, that's the thing. It's like, if you sit in a stagnant energy, whether it is mind, body, spirit, or like you feel like shit and you, excuse my language, but you feel like shit and you lay in bed all day, whether you're not feeling well or you're just feeling depressed, that's the energy that you're going to carry with you throughout the day. But if you get moving, whether it's just like going outside and moving your body and stretching, like you feel where there's energy, like portals stuck in your body. And like, there are different, we don't have to go into like the different chakras and things like that you could do energy release. We could talk about that if you want, but like, if you do have stagnant energy in the body, you're going to have like that weird energy that you're portraying, and people are going to read it off of you. But when you have energy flow in the body and you're working on it on an everyday basis, whether it's through working out or walking or just like spiritual work and journaling and letting your energy flow through emotions and understanding where you are, that's what's going to come back to you, is like that positivity, that lightness. It's not even just positivity, because I don't think that energy is just like negative or positive. I think it just is. Like, energy just is whatever you, I don't know how to put that. We're losing words here.
Yeah. It doesn't have an intrinsic negative or positive. It just is.
Yeah. And that's the thing. It's just someone, oh my God. I gotta turn off my TikTok. There's a lot of weird shit going on over there, but but it is the energy that you give off is the energy that you receive. And I see it, like we see it inside of business a lot of times. Like Brad and I are push and pull, and we're trying to learn still. We've only known each other for about 10, 11 months. And like, we actually noticed that like, it's very hard for us both to be on at the same time. So it's like, I don't know if it's because we nurture each other in different ways of like, all right, you take leadership and like, you go like take care of yourself, and then I'll step up to the plate and like, you go take care of yourself. We're trying to learn how to optimize ourselves at like an equilibrium where we're both just operating in like a really strong state. And like, that's even hard. And like, you are affected by everything and everyone around you, and it takes away from your energy. And I don't know where I'm going with this rant, because I went to TikTok and it really just like threw me off with what people are saying.
So, well, what was coming up for me as you were talking is it's like what you were saying about like your energy affecting like 3 degrees of people. And I'm so interested to read that research if you have it, or if you can refer me to it. But what I was thinking is how that relates to how we perceive the world, So if you have that energy of everyone is stupid, I'm always getting screwed over, like people are just worthless, incompetent. Like if you have this energy that everyone's dumb, out to get you, careless, nothing is good enough, whatever those like kind of negative vibes are, your perception of the world is nothing ever goes right for you. You're always getting screwed over. You're always getting, this, that, and the other. And it's so funny because I think that you can identify who those people are. And then you're like, no, thanks. I don't want to work with you. Like if we're talking about business, like this is not going to be a good fit from like a client coach perspective. And then, or they slip through the cracks somehow. And then they perpetuate that, or they, what's the word? They manifest that, like we're constantly manifesting our expectations, the vibe that we're putting out. And so if you have that expectation of everything is negative, everybody's out to get me, like nothing is good, everything has got problems associated with it, rather than the universe is conspiring in my favor in a good way. Like, like everything's coming together to bring my highest good and my hopes and dreams and like the highest version of me to fruition. Like those are vastly different energies. and you can sense that in other people, even if you can't quite put words to it, because it's like that nonverbal part of our brain that perceives those vibes from people, if that makes sense.
Yeah, for sure. And I want to kind of bring up a point of we always talk about masculine and feminine energy. And I feel like it's super important since we are in the world of business and like we can kind of loop it back in with everything like that. But I want to bring up a point of, because both Barb and I went through very deep, dark pasts in a sense of like, we don't have to share it here live. I feel like a lot of your audience has heard it many times before, your past. I shared a little bit about my past, but it was really about healing internally in order to perform externally. And the way that we were able to like heal internally, or like the way that we now feel internally, is really just the representation of what our external world is. And with the results, obviously, you can tell that both you and I have done massive amount of internal work in order to achieve what we've achieved. But I want to talk about, a lot of people talk about freeing the mind and freeing the heart and freeing the spirit and stuff like that. But I feel like the only time you're able to achieve freedom through energy is by aligning mind, body, spirit. And that's just like the only way to be able to like truly give and serve your clients is doing it from a heart-led place. And I used to make fun of the idea of like being a heart-led entrepreneur. I'm gonna laugh because I was just like, a lot of people online, they label themselves as like the heart-led entrepreneur. And I didn't really like kind of tribal language, because I was just like, oh, all these people are just like bullshit. They're liars. But after many years of work, and actually I feel like I freed my heart, like my inner child has been screaming these last few months, which is absolutely beautiful. But I feel like a magnet now. And so the way I was able to get to that place was really doing a lot of shadow work. And the shadow work that I've done internally has vibrated through our community inside of like creative brand framework. I've been able to make connections and actually like be able to nurture and care about everything that we're working on and remember things about clients and stuff like that. Because the more you pour your own cup, the more you're able to pour in the cups of others. And I think that was like the balance of feminine that I was missing, because I was always in my masculine trying to prove and drive and push and whatever. And I think that releasing, or aligning, I should say, not even releasing, but releasing negative energy in your heart and aligning mind, body, and spirit is the only true success that you can have in this world. And I'll speak from like it's like a personal experience. So
yeah. And another thing that I've been reflecting on as you're talking about like the masculine, feminine energies is I've recognized recently that I've become aware of it consciously, that I have this built-in belief that you're not working hard, or you're not like safe, I guess, in your like career or profession or business, unless you're working your ass off, which to an extent, there's a time and place for that. But it's like, that should be like this, working your ass off. And then, so it shouldn't be a constant grind or a constant struggle. And I know that I have that like innate built-in, like since childhood, because that was modeled for me, but have that belief that it should be hard. You know what I mean? And so I am very much becoming like consciously aware of, and I feel like it's probably even beyond being masculine energy, being like that American kind of centric belief that work should be hard, it should be difficult, and it should be unpleasant. Do you know what I mean? And that I don't believe that intellectually, but I think there's like that deep-seated kind of like childhood belief, because that was what was modeled for me. And so I'm like working on kind of unpacking that and reframing those beliefs to like, what evidence do I have for this? Do I actually believe that? And how can I like recognize those thoughts and those impulses when they come up, and like, snap the rubber band on my wrist to be like, no, I don't believe that. I don't subscribe to that, because it's not healthy and it's not adaptive, and it doesn't help me to be a better coach, or to serve my clients better if I'm driving myself into the ground. Like, I'm not of service to anyone. It's like very much a self-sabotage kind of a thing, in the guise of I'm doing this to be a good coach or to be a good whatever.
yeah, absolutely. And I want to kind of talk about because as your business scales, a lot more is on your plate and a lot more that you have to like take care of. What are some ways that you feel like you catch yourself besides feedback loops, which we'll definitely get into? That was the first thing that came to my mind, was a perpetual feedback loop. But when you see yourself off kilter or out of balance or unaligned, how do you feel like you're able to, one, identify, and two, work on realignment? Because it's obviously not an overnight process. Like, you kind of sometimes, or I should say we as a collective, like when we get out of balance, it might take a little bit to recognize because different things come up, whether it's like pain in the body or we're not eating correctly and we're not following a certain schedule. And these are all things that can tell that you're out of alignment because it doesn't bring you towards your higher self. So how are some ways that you recognize and then to cultivate a healing energy in your life in order to get back to that place to let you best serve?
That's a great question. There's like so many different ways of recognizing it. And it's like, at what stage am I recognizing it? And this actually goes back to a skill I became aware of and learned when I was in rehab, was recognizing that when I feel enraged about something, which is like my go-to emotion is like anger and then sadness, or anger and then whatever. But like when I feel like anger about something, it's because my boundary is being violated, or it's like I'm not upholding my boundary, or I'm not setting a boundary. It's being violated somehow. And so when I experience like anger or irritation or like annoyance, I need to look at that, because it's like I'm pushing myself beyond what is okay with me, you know. And you mentioned like your inner child. My inner child's like, excuse me, you've been sitting at this desk for like 5 straight hours and haven't gotten up. That's like, those feelings will come up, and I need to recognize that consciously and respect that, and use it. Like our emotions are like that internal GPS that we have that prevent us from getting burnt out, depressed, sick, you know, like, so that's what I mean when I'm saying like at whatever stage you're catching it at, because for me, it progresses from just like those feelings to, okay, well now I'm sick. Do you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And so I think that it, like, if I'm catching it at the beginning stages, it's like those red flag emotions of just extreme irritation, extreme anger, and like when they come up, tracing that back to, okay, what's like the thing that precipitated that emotion, and how can I honor like my body and honor like myself holistically, and not just like, okay, well I need to do this, or I have to do this, or whatever. But yeah.
No, I think it's actually so interesting, because I feel you and I are very similar in that sense. We don't fall into a wounded feminine energy. We fall into a wounded masculine.
Mm-hmm.
My stuff is all over the place. So a lot of times when they get underlined, women fall into like the victimhood. They feel powerless. That's like the depression that comes with it, where it's like manipulation and jealousy and envy and withholding emotion. So it's like they get combative and they try to protect themselves, and they kind of snap at everyone around, or they self-isolate, or they're over emotional. So they let their emotions swing up and down, and the feminine does not think rationally. Whereas it sounds like very similar to me. Like you fall into you need control. So you like try to put all the pieces together, and like I get enraged, or I haven't in a long time, I would say, but like I used to get so internally enraged that like I'm fucking anyone in my way, like there's a storm coming. And like it's really interesting to understand the masculine and the feminine energies and what's wounded, because in order to heal yourself or feel back in alignment, you have to do different things for each energy to heal. And when you feel like that aggression, and you feel like, I know, knowing you this long, like I know that you need to have that sense of control when you are out of balance. And I'm like, I see you, Barb.
I know it's sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna ask, like, what do you do in order to like heal that wounded masculine? And it's, again, everybody who's watching this, it's not like man or woman, it's masculine and feminine energy. It really just is the kind of energy that we're like fostering. Everybody has a sense of both. Everybody should try to work on balancing both. But Barb, what do you do in order to bring yourself back to peak state?
Yes.
Healed.
So I love that so much. And again, this is something that I learned about self-care from being in rehab and like being in recovery. And this might be super deep, but if Eric, I know you're in the comments, so maybe you can relate to this, or anyone else who's in recovery, but when I was in my active addiction, I was like punishing myself. And again, this is a little bit maybe deep, and it might sound crazy if you kind of don't understand it firsthand, but I also think I was like punishing God, because I was in this situation where I was insanely unhappy with just like my worldview was an unhappy one. And I felt like everything was, like I had to control everything, and I had to control everything that happened, and anything that was involved in my life, I had to control the outcome, which is impossible, as we know. And so I think from that experience, what I learned was, when I'm doing things that are not self-destructive to that extent anymore, fortunately, but like if I'm sitting at my desk for several hours without getting up, that's self-destructive to me. Do you know what I mean? And I know that's like a far cry from, being an active addict and alcoholic, but that's like when I start to observe self-destructive behaviors, I know I need to step away from what I'm doing, because continuing to like push myself in that self-destruction is the worst thing I can do. I need to step away, go for a walk, go pet my cats, like go play with my cats, go drive somewhere and just get out of the house, go talk to my sister. Do you know what I mean? Like basically recognizing, like when that emotion comes up, noticing if I'm doing something that's like really kind of self-destructive or is not like healthy for the whole of me, and then go do something different immediately. And like that's why 9-to-5 jobs are so unhealthy for most people, the vast majority of people, is because we don't have the freedom to do that. You're not able to go take a couple hours and regain some sense of like, okay, like being grounded. Do you know what I mean? You answer to someone else. And I feel like that's such a huge contributing factor. I know it was for me when I was working my 9-to-5s in the past, but that was such a huge contributing factor to feel like I didn't have control over not just my money, my time, but also kind of my health, my mental, physical, emotional health. So, yeah.
I think you just hit the nail on the head too, because like it could be unhealthy in 9-to-5, but it could also be super unhealthy with serving clients.
Mm-hmm.
Right now, we actively have 100 clients inside of our Facebook group, and it's just like there's a lot of people to cater to. But the same thing, it's like unless you put like energetic boundaries and like you protect your energy at, like you have to serve. You are there to serve as a coach, and like this, you're in the coaching space, and like the best way in order to get results for your own business is to take care of your clients and make sure your clients get results. Like that's our job and our duty as coaches. We signed up for it, and it's our job to deliver. But when you have a lot of people, and like I love every single client that comes through the door, like I talk to everybody on the onboarding calls and stuff like that. And like very much so, I love taking sales calls because you're able to read energy of people. And like I won't make offers if the energy alignment is off, as you were saying before, like on calls. But it's super important to understand that if you are here to serve people, you have to serve yourself first. And like it's very easy in entrepreneurship as a service-based provider or coach or consultant to truthfully like pour and pour and pour and forget to give to yourself. And like that's the difference between like a proactive mindset and a reactive mindset. If you're constantly waking up and you're checking emails, checking phone, checking the Facebook group that we have, like, and answering people first before even having one, a sip of coffee in the morning, or two, like whatever you do, like shower in the morning. Like I love to just like sit down and read and drink my coffee. I don't really touch my phone or go on any social media before I like go get my coffee, before I stretch in the morning, before I roll over and literally like feel and see where the energy like blocks are in my body. And that over time, like I had to learn that as like an entrepreneur, as we're growing, like if you do not take care of yourself and pour into your own cup, there is no way that you're going to quickly fall out of alignment, and you're going to quickly get mad at people that are coming after, like needing things from you, because you're going to feel like people are needy rather than like, this is my job, this is what I'm here to do and serve. Or you're going to feel like, oh, like this is an annoyance that I have to take care of, rather than like, all right, like I'll take care of it and get it done when it needs to get like ASAP. If it needs to get done, I'll get it right done right now. Excuse me. I'm like, right now. But like, that's the importance of taking care of self. And like, I feel like when you do in the morning, take care of yourself and start the day in a proactive mind rather than a reactive state, you become magnetic. Like people like love the energy that you bring to the table. You have that energy to bring to the table no matter what. And it's not like a fake cultivated energy. It's like you just operate in that like optimized state. And it's very hard to stay in this optimized state, especially with like working with a lot of people at the same time. And like right now, like personally speaking, I'm doing a lot of like little pieces inside of business that does take a lot of time and energy to talk because I'm always talking to people. And my introverted self is like, ah.
Mm-hmm.
But we're working around it. It's like, how can I protect my energy in other ways? And it's like, all right, when I'm not working or talking to people, I am off my phone and off my computer. When I'm not doing XYZ, I'm at the gym taking care of and like getting, because obviously sitting down at the desk all day and talking to people, taking like calls all day, get up and go move, go for a walk, get out into nature, do what you need to do. I was in New York. There wasn't a great energy flow of the location that I was in. So I flew to Mexico. Yes, I have that luxury. And I know that I'm very privileged to have that luxury to be able to do so. But everything is going to interfere or impact what you're doing on a daily basis, and you have to pour your own cup. I think I went on a little bit of a rant there, and I don't know if it related to what you were saying exactly, but
Related.
energy
And like what you were saying about like, if you find yourself, especially like if you're a coach, if you find yourself getting resentful that a client needs something, it's because your own needs are not getting met. So like, and again, it's like that emotional trigger, that emotional red flag that notifies you, hey, something is wrong. Like if you shouldn't be getting irritated or resentful about one of your clients being a client, like and needing things that, clients need. And if you do feel that way, it's because your own cup is not being filled first.
And that's when you know you need to take time off. But you shouldn't, and this is what I was saying before, you shouldn't let yourself get to that point.
Mm-hmm.
And like, this is why it's so important. And I think Barb, Trevor, and Alex as well, Brad and myself, it's a learning curve of the balance between on and off. And this is something that I've actually learned from like the Hermoses, is they talk about the different kinds of, I guess, entrepreneurs, you could say, or just the different kind of people and working styles. There's a constant, like, think about it like a mountain. There's people that like run and pause, run and pause, run and pause. And then there's some people that train for longevity, that just like, they're able to put their backpacks on and they're able to make it to the top of the mountain with maybe a water break here and there. That's about it. But they're not like, it's very constant. But there's different kind of workers, and you have to learn the kind of working style that you are. If you're somebody who's able to like work for like 10 days on and 10 days off, 10 days on, 10 days off, build a schedule around your optimization. But if you're somebody who's able to like work like 2 weeks, and it's not, maybe it's like on the constant grind of like 30-hour days out of the 24 that we have, and then you take like a day off. And like, I feel like this is very important, if especially like Brad and I are working together, understanding that not everybody has the same capacity of working style. And even Jonathan now, because we have a leadership team of 3, it's like, what is the different working styles and how can we actually play off of each other's strengths and working styles rather than like constantly hitting each other, where it's like, all right, like you need to go take time off, go take time off. But it is a learning curve over time, and like we don't cultivate that in the 9-to-5 setting. So if you are transitioning out of that kind of state and into entrepreneurship, take time to learn about yourself and your, again, I guess it's energy, everything is energy. But learn about this energy of like, when you're optimal, what takes away from you, because that means you might have to learn how to like pour into that cup before you approach that test that you need to take on. And yeah, I know, Barb, you just took a week off, right? No phone, no laptop.
Yeah, it was nice.
Yeah. And like you got to a point where like you were frustrated and angry, and like you felt like that, like some sort of like wounded energy was there, and you were able to bring yourself back to par. And like, yes, you're not feeling well today, so that's why, like, we are where we are. Barb's wearing her nice little comfy sweatshirt. But even the way that you were talking about business is a lot different than it was 2 weeks ago when we spoke last. And like, I got to that state where it's like, yo, I just like need a week off. I didn't take a week off. Like I thought I needed one, but I'm one of those people that's like, I just need a water break. Like,
yeah,
I needed a water break. So I took 2 days off. I spent an entire day with my sister and my best friend. And then I flew to Mexico, and here we are, and we're fine. Like, but if you feel that constant nag and pull and unalignment, it might be time to detach from literally everything that you're like working on. Realize where that like energy is really coming from, that negative feeling, that negative energy, like, and work on it. Like, sit with it, feel it. And like sometimes it's a lot of people, they find it easy to run from the negative energy or repress it or put it in a box. I think you should lean into it. And like nowadays when I feel angry, like my broken masculine, sometimes like I'll lean into anger. I'll like things like that. Instead of like shoving that anger down and like trying to meet it with the nurturing feminine, I just fucking let it out. Like I curse a lot, clearly.
Yeah, girl.
I'll go to like Rumble and I'll go boxing, or I'll just sit in my apartment and let out a yell. Like, it's fine. Because if you repress that energy, it's going to come out in some other way. So make sure.
Or if you repress that energy, that anger that you're talking about, you're depressing that energy. And that's where depression happens. Like, speaking from my own personal experience. And I know, but like, yeah. And I can't even describe to you how much I resonate with like, just like the wounded masculine and needing to like let that, oh my gosh. When I worked in investment management, I would be enraged by the people I worked with, like the sales people. I worked in operations. These people would make promises to clients the operations couldn't keep because it was just, they were trying to make a sale basically. And I would go to the gym. I would go to the Planet Fitness in Berkeley when I used to live there. And I would like rage elliptical. But it's like, I didn't need to be nurtured. I needed to punch a wall. Do you know what I mean? And like getting that, like that anger out was like the most productive and cathartic thing versus like, oh, let's talk about why you're angry. And no, I wanted to like literally going to a boxing gym sounds so amazing. But like being able to recognize that. And I think specifically for women, like being able to step into that, even if it feels a little bit scary or uncomfortable, like to express rage, to express anger, and to do so physically even. I know, and for me, I think for you too, it just comes so naturally. Maybe it's like the sports background, or maybe it's the sports that we use to sublimate that anger, like that we were always, feeling growing up. But like, I know a lot of women don't feel safe or don't feel okay. It feels like scary, like terrifying, mortally terrifying to express that level of anger. And I would encourage anyone watching, any women or men or whoever, do so in a safe way by yourself. My mom used to encourage us to like beat up pillows when we were growing up. My mom's was a therapist like our whole lives. But like, do something like that. Scream into a pillow, beat up a pillow, do something that's like safe, but is allowing that like energy to come out. Because again, stifling that or like expecting that it will go away just because you want it to and not feeling it, I can promise you it does not go away. It just gets added layer by layer behind this dam. And then when you try to disassemble that dam, you have to do so really slowly over time. Otherwise, that wave of feelings and stuff you've been storing up for a long time will crush you.
Yeah. And I think it's so important to bring up, like, everyone always talks about self-love in a sense of like journaling. And like, I'm not saying don't do it. Please do it. Like, please journal. Please embrace your sensuality. That word, sensuality. I don't know. Lean into the me time and the things like that. I'm not like, I don't think Barb and I are both saying that because we both practice these on probably a daily basis. But also lean into that healing of like masculine. And I think that's what a lot of people miss, especially women, I will say, especially this is women in entrepreneurship. It's like, in order to be, I actually got a little angered the other day by this. And then I sat there for like 30 seconds and I was like, it doesn't matter. But there was a business coach that I follow that was talking about how like you should deplete the masculine. I'm like, you are an energetic, like, I understand like you're a feminine embodiment, feminine energy coach and things like that. But that's not, in my personal opinion, that is not how to balance anything. Because if you're fully in your feminine all the time, it is a beautiful state to be in, is like nurture and being with your intuition and having that me time and stuff like that. But in a reality or a real world, because we live in the real world and the reality, you cannot sit in the state of feminine and expect to live a life, especially in America, or support yourself in America. Like it's no.
I literally can't even imagine that. That sounds like just horrible.
Yes. I mean, I would love to be picking flowers and cooking and just like doing that on a daily basis and like making sure that my body is kept up with like mind, body, spirit every single day and making sure that like I'm listening to my gut and meditating for like 4 hours a day and whatever she was saying. Like, God bless her. Like, I really hope that like that works because it might work for some people. But I know that I have to like go and slap some sales calls later.
Mm-hmm.
And I got to step into my masculine. I know that I have 100 clients that I need to like work with and deal with and literally serve. I can't do that only from a feminine energy.
Mm-hmm.
So it is so important. Yes, please take care of your feminine, but also like lean into that wounded masculine and lean into like building that masculine up as well. And if that means screaming or sitting in your car and pleading out and crying, it's totally okay. Or if that means punching pillows or going to boxing classes or whatever, or aggressively elliptical.
Yeah.
Is that what it is? Like, do it. But after you do that, recognize why you feel that way. And that's how you balance masculine and feminine. It's like, you shouldn't just go on there, just like, it's like, all right, I just raged on the elliptical for like 20 minutes,
Mm-hmm.
hopefully maybe 40 if you, I'm sure you
could.
could.
I was full at like an hour. Yeah.
Yeah. Like, but after that, I'm sure you got off and you're like, oh, I feel better. But what the was I feeling that way?
Mm-hmm.
That's how you balance
Yeah.
energy. It's get that shit out, whether it is through feminine writing on paper or masculine raging on the elliptical or punching like boxing bags.
Mm-hmm.
And then because that's like the energy movement, but then you have to realize why that energy is there. And that's going to be like, we can talk about feedback loops. We do have like a couple of minutes. But when you recognize that energy and why it's there and why you were feeling the way that you were feeling, you can put it into a rational box and then work through it in an appropriate manner.
Totally. Well, and the way I kind of like conceptualize it is like when you have that toxic, like angry energy and you're pushing it out like through whatever cathartic activity, we don't live as vacuums. So you have to like bring in new energy and like cultivate that and to like rebalance. And I feel like that's the balance of masculine and feminine is like that action to push it out. And then like that invitation to like draw in new healthy, like kind of energy. So
I think we could wrap it up on that note. I think we could.
I think so.
What are your big takeaways today, Barb, that you want to spill out to absolutely everybody?
Oh man, the importance of balance and self-reflection. Like, I was, as you were saying something earlier, I was reflecting on when I first started this entrepreneurial journey, and I had this like realization, like, wow, entrepreneurship is very much like that, like turbocharged form of therapy, where you're having to figure out stuff about yourself and work through it in real time in order to be successful. And like that process never ends. It just, it's just like self-care or anything else. As you level up, your therapy and the stuff that you're working through levels up. It's not just about, oh, I'm afraid to make content on TikTok and show my face. It's, oh, I have this like deep-seated belief that hard work and suffering is like is how you be successful at business, because that was modeled for me as a child. Do you know what I mean? So it's like that stuff never goes away. It just gets bigger and better and more. And I'm not saying this to like scare anyone away from pursuing entrepreneurship or, anything like that. And what I am saying is like, yes, those problems or the stuff that you're working through becomes larger and kind of scarier, if you want to think of it like that, but also you become better and more equipped to handle that stuff, And so I think that's really part of the process. That's cool. It's not just about building a business and making money and all of that stuff. And this actually ties perfectly back into like the balance of feminine and masculine. It's not just about building a business. It's not just about making money. It's also about learning how to honor yourself as a human being in a holistic way, and to honor wherever you're at currently, but also that higher version of yourself that you're trying to pursue in order to reach your goals in business. So
Okay, one last question before we go. And first you'll answer it, then I'll answer it. What was the biggest thing or the largest lesson you've learned in the past 3 weeks as you're scaling your business?
Do you have an answer off the top of your head?
Sit and think with it, because I'm gonna.
Okay. In the last 3 weeks. I don't know that I could narrow it down to one, so I'll include a couple. I think number one, kind of the realization that what I was just talking about, like, just in a nutshell, what was modeled for me growing up was being like serving your job, serving your profession, and having that be your whole identity, and realizing that that has kind of been creeping up on me, and that I don't want to subscribe to that belief anymore. And so what that looks like for me is putting things in place so that I can delegate to other people, so that it's clear and direct what I need other people to do in order for me to like not fall into that trap. I'll just be like super frank and open. Like my dad was very much work hard, sacrifice, spend time away from your family. Like my dad left when I was 6, or, moved away progressively further and further away to take bigger, better paying jobs, to save for retirement, to provide for his family. And it's like that kind of dichotomy of the masculine and feminine, like the provider kind of side of me, and that like other provider side of me. Like there's the business provider, the money provider, like the masculine provider, but there's also like that feminine provider, which is taking care of myself, listening to my emotions, and like honoring that. And so I think for me, the most important thing I've learned in the last few weeks is that I need to listen to both sides and honor both sides. And what that looks like in the context of my business is creating systems and delegating that to other people, and stressing less about arbitrary targets that I should be hitting, and seeing my business and my life as more of like a holistic self, a holistic me. Anyway, I know that was long-winded.
No, I love it though. Okay, so I've been doing like life exercises of like bringing the vision that you've had and comparing to like where you are, and then rebuilding a vision based on where you are going forward. And I think I've learned as we scaled Creative Brand Framework, that like the vision, for one, who you are to get to one point, you have to change and like adapt to get to the next level. That's first and foremost. And I know that we've said it time and time again, but it is the truest statement, especially for where we are inside of business, number one. But it was having a clear vision of like, now that I got to the point that we wanted to get to, it's like, where do I want to go next? And I'm realizing now, like, for one, time is the most valuable thing in this entire world. Like, I think that's like the biggest takeaway that I could say, but you don't really know what that truly means until like you hit a point and you're just like, oh, I'm putting all this time and time and time into this business, and there's a lot that's coming back. We're reaping the benefits beautifully, but like now what is valuable past the money, and that's peace. And I really do think that like, what can I do to optimize peace in my life? And like, I went on this journey about 3-4 years ago to find internal peace. But how can we remain at this level of operations and scale and scale and scale while still the entire team staying at a very internalized, peaceful state? Like, and this is like our 4th core value of Creative Brand Framework, is making sure that everybody inside of our company, as we scale and pull on people, that mental health and physical health is taken care of both like internal team and clients. But it's like, that's the truest statement. And I'm glad that we brought that to the forefront in the beginning, because going forward, that's the most important thing personally to me, is like having time to give back to family and having time to give back to like my peace. And that's something that I've learned over the past like 2-3 weeks as I'm like redoing the vision of what I want for myself. And it still stands true that that's like the most important thing in this life is like buying back your time and like cultivating peace.
Yeah. Well, and I think that, and I promise this will be the last thing I say, but it's like, if you ask people, what do they want? Like the typical response on sales calls, financial freedom, time freedom. If you really drill down to why they want that, it's because they want peace. Like they want that serenity, that kind of level of like homeostasis where they're comfortable. Things aren't, crazy fluctuations. Like life is always going to be life. You can't control that, but people ultimately just want like that peace. And so I think that that's like super important to have that realization, like, why am I doing this? And I'm talking to myself fully. Why am I doing this? And it's to have peace and serenity and comfort. And I'm not trying to become, the next Jeff Bezos or anything. I'm trying to just have stability and peace. And that's it, and to keep that in mind as I just operate in my day-to-day life.
Love it. On that note, I think we could wrap it up. Everyone, work with Barb.
Yes.
That's it.
Pretty much. That's what I would say too. All right. So what's going on tomorrow, Nina?
You're coming because I'm so excited if you're there, right? You'll be there?
I think so, right?
Yeah, you'll be there. I was gonna actually ask if you're going to be there. All right, everybody. This is beautiful then. Tomorrow we are going to have very own Barb McGowan live in my Facebook group alongside financial badassery, Marissa May, and Jordan Lawson, mindset coach. And we're just going to talk about business, what it takes to launch. We're all at different stages of business, which is absolutely beautiful. Number one, first and foremost. So we'll drop the link to my Facebook group, but you're going to learn what it takes to see exactly what Barb did to build her personal brand from A to Z, literally to where she is today. Beautiful Barb McGowan. Now Marissa was able to take her online coaching business literally from 0 to her first 12K month and preparing for her first 30K month. What she did, and she started February 1st was her first day, and now it's June 2nd, and she's prepared to do her first 30K month this June. Jordan Lawson came in, mindset coach, 0 follow. Oh, he had some following. I won't lie, he had some following. 0 experience in business. He landed 9 clients this month, and he did over 4K this month so far. And this is starting from absolutely nothing. So if you want to learn what it takes to actually build a business, if you want to build a personal brand, number one, go to Barb. She's your girl. But if you want to learn what it looks like inside of different businesses at different stages, check out my Facebook group. We'll catch us there tomorrow. Let's go.
All right. Thanks for joining. See y'all tomorrow.